Is there something holding you back from being a missionary? Is there some weakness that you feel that may prevent you from being effective in God's work? Well, let me tell you a story that my grandma told me. She learned this while her husband, my grandfather, was working at the General Conference. So this is a story that happened many, many years ago, back before there were airplanes, back when missionaries still had to take ships, going across the ocean. And a young man by the name of Jim felt convicted by God to be a missionary in the South Pacific to an island that was known for cannibals. And the General Conference accepted him. But back in those days, because of the long trip, missionary terms would often be 10 years or more. And so the GC told him to, make sure and get a thorough physical, check everything, dentist, everything. So Jim did before he went over. And his physical was fine. But when he went to the dentist just shook his head. He said, "Jim, you must not have followed your mom's instructions. You must not have brushed your teeth very well when you were a kid. And, almost all of your teeth have rot in them. And, if you're not going to have access to a dentist for another 10 years, I'm going to need to pull all of your teeth." Well, Jim definitely did not want to go through that pain and definitely didn't want to lose all of his teeth. But he knew that God had called him to this work, and so he agreed. And the dentist pulled all of his teeth over the course of several months and then made a prosthesis for him, made like false teeth. And so Jim got on the ship to head across the ocean wearing a mouthful of false teeth after going through a very painful process of getting all his teeth extracted. Well, about 3 months later, when Jim arrived, when the ship arrived at the island where he was going to be assigned, the seaman got all of his trunks, all of his luggage, put it on a smaller boat, got Jim on the boat, and started rowing him towards the shore. Now, all of Jim's friends, when he told them that he was going to be going as a missionary to these cannibal people, they all thought he was crazy, and his family, his friends, all tried to dissuade him from going and being a missionary to these people. They said, "Let somebody else go. It's not God's calling you to do that. It's presumptuous for you to do that." Many different things like this. But Jim kept saying, "Well, if not me, then who? Who else will go? If God has called me, then who else will go and reach these people?" And so as Jim is sitting in the boat, being rowed towards the shore, he's starting to think about this, starting to wonder if this really was the best thing to do. And well, the ship's men, they knew how dangerous this place was and how it had a history of the people there killing and eating any missionaries that tried to go to them. And so a little ways off from shore, the seamen started to throw all of Jim's boxes and trunks and everything overboard into the ocean. And when they got all of his luggage out, they pushed Jim out of the boat into the ocean as well. Well, Jim didn't know how to swim, so he immediately sank to the bottom, but he was pretty quick-witted, and so he jumped off the bottom, managed to break his head out of the water, took a breath, went down again, jumped again off the bottom, and he just kept on doing that until he got all the way over to the shore. So finally he got out onto the beach and is just on all fours on the beach there, coughing and spluttering and trying to recover from pretty much drowning. And he hears all this hollering and shouting, and he looks up and hear all these people running down the beach toward him with bows and arrows, pulled ready to shoot him, with spears ready to spear him. Jim doesn't know what to do, and he, natural reaction, he's terrified. And so he starts to just shake, and his mouth drops open, and all of his false teeth drop out onto the sand right in front of him. Well, the people were right up to him at this point, just ready to spear him. But when they saw all of his teeth fall out, they didn't know what to do with that. So they kind of just froze and were just staring at Jim. Jim didn't know what to do. Like, should he do something? Should he run away, or would that kind of break the spell, or what should he do? So he just reached down, grabbed his false teeth, brushed the sand off of them, and stuck them back in his mouth again. Well, as soon as he did that, all the people started to yell and to shout, and Jim said, "Oh no, this is the end of me." Committed his spirit to the Lord, but instead of killing him, the people dropped their spears, and they picked him up, and they carried him into the village. And they put him in the chief's house, and they started bringing him gifts of food and fruit and all kinds of good things to eat. For the next several months, they kept feeding Jim all the time, and Jim used the opportunity to learn their language, eventually figuring out that the people thought, when his teeth came out, and then he was able to put them right back in again, the people thought, oh, he must be a spirit, or he must be, one of the ancestors come back to visit them again. And so that's why they treated him with such respect. So it gave him enough time to learn the language and to be able to teach them about Jesus before explaining to them, that he was just a person just like them, but a person who believes in Jesus and who came to risk his life in order to bring them the good news of life eternal in Jesus Christ. So like my question at the beginning, is there something that is holding you back? Is there something that you feel that you can't overcome, that you can't sacrifice? Is there some weakness that you feel that would prevent you from being a missionary? Just like Jim, remember Jim and how he was willing to sacrifice his life, how he was willing to go through the pain of having all of his teeth extracted, how he was willing to live with false teeth for the rest of his life, and how that weakness, the very thing that was caused his greatest pain, was the greatest weakness to him, was the very thing that God used in order to bring these people to faith. People that were not being able to be reached by anybody else before him. So once again, if anything is holding you back, if there is anything that you feel that is preventing you from being a missionary, commit that to the Lord, because God has promised that where we're weak, that is where God's grace will abound.